So you've probably seen on YouTube those videos of people taking a penny and trading it up to a house, right? Maybe they don't get to a house, but they get to several thousands of dollars or maybe tens of thousands of dollars. It's super unique experience that showcases that with just a little bit of initial start and with enough time and energy, you can really do well for yourself. And I wanted to try that idea, that concept, when it comes to crypto airdrops. And I've done exactly that starting in September with the very first airdrop, not the first airdrop I've ever had, but the very first airdrop to start off this journey with about a $400 airdrop that once I sold it was worth about $300. But either way, I wanted to really showcase that with something as simple as $300 that you get from participating in a project with a little bit of time and energy, you can turn that into, for some people, life-changing amounts of money. We're going to showcase how I'm doing that in today's video, and even more so, how I'm doing it with Aster and with more projects moving forward. Hopefully you join me on this journey. If you enjoy content like that, consider subscribing. You enjoyed this video, smash up the like. Without further ado, let's move the video. Now, as we dive into this video talking about the last week for stage 2 when it comes to the Aster airdrop, I want to also kind of key you in on how this all started for me and how I originally started funding my Aster account and where it has gone since then. So it all started with this very simple device. This is a Deepen crypto device that is a project called Star Power on Solana. Now, I've been involved in that project for a very long time, and when I got my airdrop, I got an airdrop worth $430. Now, when I actually sold it, it really only sold it for about $300 because the token price came a little bit down. Obviously, oftentimes after airdrops, people like to get their money back or cash in on it. So what I wanted to do instead of just cashing this out to the bank account is I wanted to kind of really start a strategy to grow something very small. And for most people, maybe you can go get a part-time job to get $300. Maybe it is something that, you know, if you're in the crypto space. No. So when I got my first, no. So as we dive into this video, before we talk about the last week for Aster, everything that you need to know to get as many points as possible, because it's still not too late. There's still plenty of opportunity. I want to briefly kind of highlight where my journey has taken me thus far. Now, mind you, this is September 16th, literally a day before CZ from Binance comes out and says, I like what Aster is doing, and that's when the token started pumping from 17 cents to when I got into it at 30 cents. So what I wanted to do is I said, well, I'm going to take this airdrop, and instead of just converting it, selling it, and withdrawing the money to my bank account, I wanted to grow a very simple airdrop from having a device plugged in. Even if it wasn't a Deepen device plugged in, there's other projects that have been out there before, like Grass, that I earned about a $300 to $400 airdrop from by simply sharing my internet bandwidth. So by participating in Grass, I was able to airdrop $300. By participating in a project like Star Power, it required a device purchase, but I still got around $300 to $400 in airdrops. So what I wanted to do is flip airdrops. Like I said in the intro, we've seen videos of people flip a penny into a house, and I wanted to flip an airdrop into 6 figures. So it all started with this. I posted about this the day after CZ decides to post about Aster. And Aster simply starts taking off, and I start to look further into Aster and how I can participate in the next airdrop. I'm going to show you all the numbers, all of the criteria, and some of the expectation, and some of the potential opportunity and what it could be worth. Even just participating in it for just 1 week alone could still be life-changing for you. So this happened September 18th. Where Aster talks about this as far as stage 2 being some of the trading strategies and stuff like that behind stage 2. We are still currently in stage 2. Here are all my metrics. Here are all my points. And I've done this with starting off with just $300. This wasn't with, there's people that come into something like Aster who are on the very, very top of the leaderboard that are starting off with 7 figures. And that's simply unrealistic for the average person and it's unrealistic probably for most people here watching this video. So I wanted to do something realistic, something that is possible, something that you can find a penny almost anywhere in Walmart parking lot and your grocery store parking lot and trade it up. Now, not everybody's going to do that, but it's just there to prove a point that with just something as simple as $300, you could potentially turn it into something life-changing. So I started off, we're going to come back to these metrics, but that $300 has now allowed me to, not only I did very well with the initial 300 on Aster, I then got involved into a project with a DeFi project called Project X. We talked about that already, but I'm farming a airdrop through the likes of Kinetic and getting and earning K points. I also allowed me to get into another project called Lighter. Lighter is another perpetual DEX. There's an expected airdrop coming at the end of the year. Based off of this calculator, I don't know exactly how accurate it is, but one of the better calculators I found out there, based on the criteria that we put in, the initial airdrop that I was able to get with just $300, I moved over $100 on Lighter. I've gotten thus far about 15, almost 16 Lighter points. This is still continuing. Q4 airdrop isn't going to be till possibly the end of the year, but that $100 could be potentially worth upwards of $3,000. So mind you, we started off with 300. Now we're, even with Lighter, roundabout potentially worth 3,000. Not exactly sure what it's going to look like with Kinetic, but I want to focus more specifically on Aster because this is more of an immediate opportunity. The last week is this week. It ends October 5th, and this has been broken down into 4 separate epochs. And obviously, the earlier you got in, the better. And in fact, when I look at this right here, the total RH points that I had in just the second epoch was only 8.9 thousand points because I was still very, very early, and I really only had like 2 days to be able to earn points, and I didn't earn nearly enough, and I didn't know nearly enough at that time to get as many points as possible. But I had a very, very large share of the overall points during that week. Because when you look at the week after, I had almost 20 times the more points, but I had about half, less than half, about a third of the overall share of the points shared in that time frame. And you can see that overall points earned also dramatically increased. I mean, you see a 50x increase in points. And then more recently, this, like I said, this is the last week. It started yesterday, so we are into day 2. I have earned significantly more points because I've kind of figured out how things work. And that has allowed me to earn a lot more. But we're into day 2. There's about 70 billion total RH points being distributed every day. So if you think about that in roundabout numbers, you're probably going to be somewhere in the ballpark around this total number as well by that time ends. And I want to make sure that my total share is significantly higher. I'm going to try to maintain this now that I know what I'm doing. And the biggest thing that you have to understand is you have to join a successful team. I'll leave my link down below. There is a rebate, so you can get 5% back on your, so you don't have to pay as much in fees. But I'll leave a link to it down below, and I'm going to show you some of the different strategies later on in the video of what people are doing. But I want to jump into what is this potentially worth? Like, what is the ballpark number? What are some people out there saying? And be realistic with the fact that this isn't going to be the 6 figures, right? This isn't going to be $300 into directly 6 figures. I think it's going to get me very close to it, but I don't think it's going to be exactly that. But I want to highlight a few things here. Obviously, a lot of this also depends on the price of Aster. There was a little bit of FUD earlier as far as crypto unlocks. People didn't understand that 8.8% tokens had already been unlocked. The majority of tokens are still locked, and a good portion of the tokens are set aside for airdrops. So we had a little bit of a retracement, but we've bounced off of that. This is the FUD that came out earlier. People were like, oh, there's massive unlocks happening. Not nearly the case. So there's going to be a 4% airdrop unlock on October 5th, technically when Stage 2 Genesis ends. But there is no date or time of when that airdrop will be delivered. So while that Stage 2 ends then, it doesn't mean that the tokens are going to be airdropped immediately after. That's kind of an unknown, but that is such the name of the game. So the other thing is, what are people expecting the points to be worth? So you see here some people saying that just this year made it in the top 70, 750 traders for Stage 2 Epoch 3. expecting that just this being worth about $30,000 just in 1 week alone, being up here, getting that percentage of the share. You have others out here doing some moon math. You can see here, based on 4% fully diluted valuation at 600 million, about 600 million tokens, $600 million worth of tokens getting airdrop. And he is stating this based off of his trading volume plus referrals, currently at 0.002 of the total RH points that have been sent out so far. This would mean he's currently positioned for roughly 120K in Aster airdrops. So I think that would be absolutely insane. I am not as nearly as bullish on that. So I think there's probably going to be a very middle in between of what maybe it's there. I think it's going to be somewhere in the middle. But I know for me personally, I have significantly more points than this and expect to not get as the six-figure airdrop specifically. I'm going to go into my points in just a second. And then you have this very last one here talking about if you get into the top 0.001%, which I am on this week, for the Aster airdrop, you'll get a $7,000 drop at today's prices. You don't even need to be a good trader. Hold Aster. There's some different strategies out there. And so there are a lot of speculations. This, according to Aster, is the guide. So if you want to stop, pause, and take a look at this, this is the guide. But I want to show you something that is a lot more in detail. But before we get into that, I want to show you more specifically my metrics. These are directly on my dashboard. You can see I have about 634,000 overall RH points. And you can see right now I am in the 0.0019. So if I'm doing my math correctly, I started too late for week one, so I didn't get anything for week one, even though that would have been probably the most rewarding, and obviously the earlier you get in, the better. And this is some hypotheticals, this is some assumptions being made. So if the airdrop is worth 600 million, and the 600 million, the value of the tokens, but each of the tokens are split over those 4 weeks, right? It makes sense to reward those who got in earlier by giving them more of the share because they got in early before everybody else joined. So it's not that far off to think that it would be split evenly between those. And it's going to be a lot more diluted the later that people join, but there's still going to be plenty of opportunity. Each week, 25% of the airdrop is allocated, and your airdrop value or the tokens that you get is based off of your share for that week. So based off of this and based off of my numbers, if you're looking at $150 million per week, based off of what I have, based off of my metrics, if they stay the same for week 2 and week 3 and week 4, if it all stays the same, I would have an airdrop worth around $45,000. Now, mind you, this is turning $300 starting off from another airdrop into what I'm doing right now with Aster, into 3 other projects right now that I'm actively farming, where I already have the original funds. I made a little bit of a return on Aster and have moved that across the board. Here's the thing. If it comes to trading, the biggest thing you need to understand, and I'll leave a link to this post down below because it's the last week, probably the most important week, but there's still plenty. Even if, right, you start off, and like I said, I started off with $300. I still have on my Aster account, if you go over to my perpetual trading, I'm still trading this with $407. Now, I've put money elsewhere, but I wanted to stay as true as possible to turning $350 into 6 figures. So with that said, let's talk about this thread because this is the most important aspect of this week and how you can potentially make really, really great opportunity of the trading. Like I said, the biggest thing is join a team. I'll leave a link for mine down below. And secondly, this post is all you need. So everybody is talking about this and it is severely underfarmed and the upside is massive. I think there's definitely a lot of opportunity. Even initial airdrops of 1 to 5K can easily make 25K or more with basic airdrops. So obviously you have the 4% of the supply. They go into some of the details. The biggest thing is volume. So volume is very, very important. One of the other things that is very important as well is being able to trade with high leverage, high volume. This is something very, very important. And the one thing that also, if you want to be as safe as possible, is use a platform like Lighter to counter trade your trade. So if you go long on Aster, you go short on Lighter. Not only do you also earn for Lighter to be able to provide shares, you're able to earn from there. You are counter trading. So if one trade loses, you win on the other one. So you don't necessarily lose money, but you're at that point farming two separate projects. That's what I've been doing thus far. The other thing to understand is leverage is money. And that's one thing I found out and I mean, you can look at my points as that has continued to grow. If you look at my points have grown dramatically. And that's because I figured out the sweet sauce is holding high leverage, which is risky, holding high leverage for a longer period of time. So being able to trade with 40, 50, 60, 70, 80x leverage, yes, there's a lot of risk, but that is where all the points exist. So in that instance, when I take $100 and I use 80x leverage, that's a $8,000 trade. It gets me a lot of points, but when you're trading it on Bitcoin, it doesn't have a lot of volatility, it doesn't have a lot of movement. You're not necessarily worried as much about the profit. You're more worried about being able to trade, hold that trade, and be able to potentially profit. Obviously, if you got a good entry, that also adds to your overall score. So there's a lot of different metrics. Like I said, this overall goes into a lot of the details. Daily realized profits and losses contribute to RH. So be mindful of that. This isn't simply just wash trading. So you buy, trade, drum up a bunch of volume, doesn't really count towards your overall profit and score. If you trade, and you don't have a long hold time is 10x the weight. So the longer you hold, the more points you get. So this has a lot of incentivization to get good entries, to make profit, and to hold with high leverage. That is the name of the game. The only thing that attributes better to that is by joining a team where you earn 1.5x your overall points. Currently doing that with the team I've joined. So if you want to join that, I'll leave a link to it down below. Join me on this journey. We're going to have more content coming out as we talk about taking $300 into six figures when it comes to crypto airdrops. Hopefully you join me on that journey by subscribing, liking this video, and until next time, guys, stay invested.